plan, which this Reconnecting Communities Act aligns with perfectly. The American Families Plan, the American Rescue Plan that brought America, is beginning to bring America back out of the impact of the pandemic. These are all plans, as they say in their titles, to restore America, to lift it up. We know that communities like the communities of West Baltimore, too often and in too many places across this country, are the ones that get the back of the hand when it comes to decisions about urban planning, about projects, and so forth. That's the justice component of this. That's why environmental justice has become now a movement across the country, and we see it coming here to this project. So I'm very pleased to join with my colleagues in the delegation. I want to thank them for their leadership. We know that President Biden's mantra is Build Back Better for America. With the leadership of Mayor Scott, and thank you, Mayor, and the other leaders here of the city of Baltimore, we're going to build Baltimore back better with projects like this one, getting rid of the highway to nowhere and reconnecting communities that have been divided in this country and in this city for too long. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Senator Baker.
Well, thank you, John. We've also been joined by Senator Charles Sydnor. Thank you for your leadership, and to you and Senator Hayes and Delegate Haynes. Thank you for all the work you did in Annapolis. Where did he go? Oh, snuck over here. Okay, thank you all. Thank you all for what you did in Annapolis this year in terms of working to defeat COVID-19, as well as advance equity and social justice in our state. We're now happy to try and answer any questions that you may have.
So Mayor Scott, what would Mayor Scott like to see replaced this highway?
All right.
Thank you, Senator. Dave, I think that what you heard about earlier is about the possibilities, right? We know that this should be some open space. This should also be opportunity for us to, again, talk about real public transportation. The possibilities are limitless here. But what we have to do first is work with these fine folks to make sure that we're actually at a point where we can do it. This is a place where we can reconnect communities. This is a place where we also, let's not let this moment pass us and not be reminded that the red line was supposed to come down here. Let's remember that. This should be we should be right now standing in a place where construction is still going on to build a new subway line in Baltimore, and it's unfortunate that we're not. But as we move forward in the future, when you think about park space, when you think about transportation, when you think about all of those opportunities, we have to keep all of them on the table so that we're reconnecting these neighborhoods, but also allowing these folks that live here in West Baltimore to reconnect with other parts of town, just like they have the opportunity with the MARC that we also need to expand to connect to DC and other cities.
I would just add, I mentioned this in my remarks. I encourage everybody to go online, look at the Urban Land Institute and the Baltimore Development Corporation plan. Not because that's necessarily the be-all and end-all, but it gives you an idea of how you could transform this area. Yeah.
This is a national proposal we're talking about here, but there's all this centralized local support. Have you heard of similar efforts in other cities with a history of racist urban infrastructure to drum up support?
Yes, absolutely. And Congressman Brown mentioned some of the other examples around the country. Down in New Orleans, you have some examples. President Biden was just down south recently, and we can get you the list of other projects around the country. But this is not a problem isolated to Baltimore City, although I would argue that the highway to nowhere is a very clear example of this kind of discriminatory practice we saw around the country. Yeah. Yes.
Going off of Dave's comment about the red line and state support, can you talk about any possible conversations with the governor about plans for this beyond the red line, and how do you see that partnership working at the state level?
Well, I think that we know that we have to have all partners here, right? And I think you see that we have our state partners here with our senators and our delegates, and we will also be talking with the governor and his folks. We all know that the bottom line is this cannot continue to exist. We're going to be supportive of our federal delegation as they're supportive of us, of understanding what needs to happen here, and we have to bring everyone to the table now and in the future, because this is going to obviously outlast the governor's term, right? Because he only has a little over a year left, and whoever's coming behind him also is going to have to understand that this is a big project that can't be left aside. It has to be a priority to make sure that we are righting the wrongs of not just the red line, but the highway to nowhere.
Let me just say, as Senator Cardin and others in the delegation have pointed out, the reason we have such a great opportunity right now is because President Biden has put the American Jobs Plan on the table. I'm confident that we can include this as part of the plan. And it was federal dollars originally that helped create this monstrosity and this scar through the city. And so it's important that the federal government be front and center in resolving it.
I know the conversations are still going on with negotiations with other members of Congress. Do you anticipate this being a part of what could be one of two infrastructure deals happening in Washington?
Well, as you say, there are a number of measures going through, and I'm going to ask Senator Cardin to speak to the one that he's shepherding through the Environment and Public Works Committee. But whatever we don't do, if we don't get this done on one, we are going to get it done one way or another.
There are about 6 committees in the Senate that have jurisdiction over the American Jobs Plan. I'm involved in 3 of those committees. The transportation aspect goes through the Environment and Public Works Committee. We are planning a markup as early as next week, but certainly in June. And we're going to take it as far as we possibly can on a bipartisan basis. We're doing the same thing, the Senate Finance Committee, as early as next week also, on some of the revenue issues. And on the Small Business Committee, I anticipate having legislation that will help minority small businesses in regards to the infrastructure package. I mention that because that'll be important, I think, here in Baltimore. As Senator Van Hollen said, we are looking, Senator Capito is supposed to return with an offer, we hope this week. We're going to try to move a bill in a bipartisan manner as broadly as we possibly can. I'm not terribly optimistic that in regards to this particular program we're going to get a lot of Republican support. They did not express that during the hearing. But we are absolutely going to try to get that included in the first package that moves through our committee. We hope that we'll be able to get a robust bipartisan bill on infrastructure if all the American people desperately want it. And our committee, Environment and Public Works Committee, has passed infrastructure bills by unanimous support. So we'll take it as far as we can, but the backup is to bring down a bill through other procedures, and we'll do that also. And I agree with Senator Van Hollen. The equity issues, including remedy a highway that goes nowhere, needs to be part of the infrastructure package that ends up on President Biden's desk.
Let me just update on the House. And just a quick update on the House side. I mean, we're going to be taking up the surface transportation portion of the American Jobs Plan the last work week in May, and we're going to be taking up that $600 to $700 billion portion of the American Jobs Plan. This is going to be on the table. I'm very confident that it's going to be included in the measure that comes out of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and will go to the floor of the House. And given that the Reconnecting Communities Act does not prescribe specific type of infrastructure that either has to be modified, dismantled, or erected, I'm not anticipating the largest opposition from the other side of the aisle than perhaps on other provisions. But we're gonna include this, and it'll make it out of committee by the end of this month.
We've got time for 2 more.
Best case scenario, what timeline would you be looking at removing this highway?
Well, let me first point out that Senator Capito voted for exactly this kind of program 2 years ago when it was in the form of a pilot program. So all the elements of this bill were included in the earlier bill that passed the Environment and Public Works Committee unanimously 2 years ago. So she is already on record supporting this idea in principle. How large we scale it in terms of dollars obviously is discussion. We put forward our proposal. So look, we're going to be working to take up the American Jobs Act in the Senate, and I know in the House, before August, and hope to have the whole thing wrapped up by the fall, I would say. And the only question, as Senator Cardin and Senator Brown alluded to, is in the Senate, we want to get as much done on a bipartisan basis as we can, but make no mistake, getting it done is the most important thing. And in the Senate, we have mechanisms like reconciliation to do it with 51 votes. That's how the American Rescue Plan was passed, because it was needed. So I'm confident this. Once the bill passes, obviously, then you've got to go through the programs. But this program, I'm confident will be in whatever ultimate bills we pass.
So, if you deploy on highways, will that create incapacity concerns? And if so, what could be done spending-wise to address it, like increasing mass transit, maybe? Say that with highways, will it create traffic concerns in corridors across the country? And if so, will you increase mass transit funding to offset the capacity loss?
Well, I want the others to mention. We are looking at a balanced plan that includes modernizing roads and bridges, but also includes increasing our transit investment nationally, and a much broader view of infrastructure to include 21st century infrastructure like broadband, like our clean energy infrastructure. So these are all important investments that we're going to include.
Let me just point out, President Biden's made it clear that the climate change issues are going to be a highest priority in the infrastructure package. So we do want to use less vehicles. We want to use more friendly vehicles. We want to invest in transit. So absolutely, we have a very high priority for the multimodal, including a significant improvement on transit service in our community.
And let me just add, the American Jobs Plan proposed by the Biden administration calls for doubling federal investments in transit. And again, when you think about those cornerstones, equity and justice and climate, what better way when you're making investments in transportation than to invest in transit? As the mayor mentioned, we could very well have been standing here cutting the ribbon on a section of the Red Line. And why it's so important is because when you look at ridership on transit, and it's not just light rail, it's also bus service, higher percentage of people from low-income households, black and brown communities. So these are the kinds of investments that we need to make. It's the kinds of investments that are being proposed in the American Jobs Plan. Also things like transportation demand management. More and more people we saw during this pandemic are now working from home. Not everybody can, but more and more will. Do we have a plan and a program led by policymakers working with the private sector to support people who are working at home? Because the goal is, in many ways, keep cars off the road. It's good for the environment, right? Better for quality of life, and let's invest in a variety of transportation options, not just highways.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for pulling this together.
Thank you.